Volcanos and Asteroids. You've heard about both of these events plenty in the news. In reality, they look more like this. Or this. Until you see them, and then it's too late. Both are extremely destructive events. Both are very rare. They come in small sizes and eruptions, and in large, if not super large sizings. But which one is the bigger threat to humanity? Which one is the bigger threat to you? Let's start with your regular volcano eruptions that happen several times during a time span of 100 years. In the last 100 years, there were 30 eruptions with human casualties. 33,659 died to the explosions. Snakes, on the other hand, killed 10 million in that time. And unless you're standing or living near one of those volcanoes, you have nothing to worry about when it comes to those smaller explosions. Asteroids, on the other hand, can hit anywhere, anytime. So how many did they kill the last 100 years? 0. They killed 0. But that is not because smaller asteroids are not hitting Earth. They do. They just burn up in the atmosphere and they don't reach the ground if they are smaller than 30 meters in diameter. But what about larger asteroids that reach the surface? Starting with 100 meters in size, they will hit the ground and have a chance to kill a lot of people. The number of deaths caused by asteroids rise quickly up in numbers once you get to a size of 300 meters. A 300 meter asteroid like Apophis is estimated to cause an average of 150,000 lives on its direct impact. That is already considering the fact that 70% of those collisions would be in water, which would be a lot less dangerous than on land. But those are not happening every 100 years, they only happen every 73,000 years. So that would be a 0.14% chance of it happening in the next 100 years. That's an average of 210 lives in the next 100 years. So the danger of even medium-sized asteroids is really small actually, even compared to the small volcanoes. What about even bigger ones though? Let's look at the global threat asteroids, which start at 1 kilometer of size. At that size, they would create a crater of at least 13 kilometers of size. It might immediately cost 1 to 2 million lives on average on impact. The 1 kilometer asteroids start to have the chance to have a global impact. Any larger and they could cause climate change, and they even might cause volcanic eruptions themselves. They have the power of over 50 times the total supply of nuclear weapons around the world. If the impact causes the dying of animals and plants and widespread famine around the world, there's a chance a big portion of people on the Earth might die. So let's assume 25% of the population will die in the aftermath of an impact of an asteroid of 1 to 4 kilometers of size. That would be then another 2 billion casualties. But wait, it gets worse. Now with this kind of impact, there's also the chance of humanity stopping to exist and getting wiped out completely. If this happens, how many humans are not even born because of that asteroid impact? If we assume humans could live for another 300 million years until the sun makes Earth uninhabitable and 120 million people keep getting born every year, there would be 36 quadrillion humans that would not be born because of that asteroid. Let's say the asteroid has a 0.1 chance of wiping out humanity as a whole. This would still mean that such an impact on land might mean that 36 trillion humans are not being born on average. Luckily, those impacts only happen every million years or so. And even more lucky, we already have discovered almost 1 million asteroids. Estimated that now already 97% of all those huge asteroids 1 kilometer and above are known to us. None of which have any relevant chance of impact the next 100 years. So that reduces the chance of an impact of an unknown asteroid the next 100 years on land to roughly 1 in a million. So within the next 100 years, that means on average, still 36 million people are being prevented from being born because of possible 1 to 5 kilometer sized asteroids, plus then 2,000 direct casualties on average. Unfortunately, there are also supervolcanoes like the one in Yellowstone. They have the immediate impact power of a 300 meter asteroid like Apophis. That's not the main threat of them, however. The 4-kilometer asteroid was most dangerous because of the global consequences through the ash it will put into the atmosphere. Well, it put around 178 cubic kilometers into the air. A supervolcano, on the other hand, is defined by putting at least 1000 cubic kilometers into the air. So they put at least over 5 times as much into the air than a 4-kilometer sized asteroid. They also range from 1000 to 12,000 cubic kilometers of molten rock, with the average being 2000 cubic kilometers. So it seems like they are an even bigger threat than the 4-kilometer asteroids. Maybe, maybe not. The 4-kilometer asteroid can also even cause those eruptions and just has a much larger initial impact. Also, our experience with those is not exactly large. There were 2 super eruptions in human history, 25,000 and 71,000 years ago, and the humans at that time failed to write a wiki page about how that went. Maybe the internet went down for them while their population was reduced to around 1,000 humans. Also, if they would not have made it and humanity would have died out, we wouldn't be here and would be able to talk about it. So survivorship bias is at work here. Let's assume they're roughly on par in danger for human lives with the 1 to 4 kilometer asteroids. But how likely is one of those super eruptions? Well, the Yellowstone one is estimated to have a chance of 1 to 7,300 to erupt with a super explosion in the next 100 years. But there are more spots to look at, really. Looking at the overall history of eruptions of the world in the past, the overall chance of a super eruption happening in the next 100 years is roughly 1 in 1,000. That's 1,000 times more likely than the chance of an asteroid having a similar impact. 10 times more if we don't just look at the next 100 years, because we know what's going to happen in those 100 years with the asteroids mostly. Assuming a super eruption might kill 25% of the population on average, this means on average 2 million people are gonna get killed by a super eruption in the next 100 years. Car accidents killing 120 million in the meantime. If we again count a 0.1% chance of the human species ending like we did with the 4-kilometer asteroids, that means 36 billion lives being prevented from being born on average. Keep in mind that snakes bite over the whole human existence through the next 300 million years will kill a total of 30 trillion people. So there is a chance we will survive super eruptions from supervolcanoes, but the impact of a 20-kilometer asteroid, comet or planet, we will most likely not survive. Those impacts have a 1 to 5 million chance of occurring in the next 100 years. Given that 36 quadrillion humans will for sure not be born if that happens, not a chance to be taken lightly. That means an average loss of 7.2 billion lives. Only 1600 if we just count the ones being alive today though. Now there is also an equivalent on the volcano side that is even larger than supervolcanoes. And that is flood basalts. Those have happened a couple of times before in Earth's history and are now thought to be responsible for the extinction of the dinosaur, not the 10-kilometer asteroid. They coincided with a lot of extinctions that caused 75% of all species to die every time they happened, and they killed 90% of all individuals on the planet. So should one of those flood basalts happen, humanity's chances are pretty slim. We are not tardigrades after all. Those happen with a probability of 1 in 1 million over the next 100 years, 5 times as likely as the mega asteroid. Being roughly 1,000 times worse for humanity and roughly 1,000 times as unlikely as supervolcanoes, they pose an equal threat to humanity. Now, to you, well, it is unlikely, so for the current living humans on the planet, that will mean they kill 8,000 on average over the next 100 years. But don't worry too much, most likely you can't do anything to prevent those things anyway, and snakes will kill more humans in all scenarios. And let's hope human progress will get us to Mars before all that happens. And now it's your turn. What single thing would help humanity the most? Click the video on the screen right now to find out.